conceptual perspective to view things. People talk about a desire to be successful, all of the elements.
Hey everybody, Dr. Rick Wallace here. Dropping in on you now to talk about specifically being smart when it comes to the political process, in specific how we use our vote or not use our vote, and what that really means. One of the things that we have done historically as Blacks, two things that have been very, very destructive and counterproductive for us is that one, we vote traditional, uh, without examining the process, without any strategic agenda, without any sense of direction of what we need, what we're moving toward, what we're fighting for, simply from the platform of what our parents and their parents did and how we believe based on the emotional and the emotions, the rhetoric, and so forth. The other thing we've done is we voted from emotion, how we feel, not what we know, but how we feel. And how we feel because we're so emotional. And don't get me wrong, with the experiences that we have endured generationally, from 1619, which is the official start of slavery, to 246 years later, where the official quote unquote end of slavery took place, and then the 153 years since, what I refer to as quasi-freedom, the appearance of freedom, but not truly having access to everything that someone who is free has access to. When you sit up and look at that, there's a lot of reasons to be emotional because there's a lot of experiences that have a direct impact on our emotional centers. However, we can never be people who make decisions from emotion. One of the worst ways to make decisions, one of the worstest platforms for decision making is emotion. Emotion will misguide you, mislead you, make you open for all types of automatic suggestion, subliminal suggestion, and so much more. And you will be so emphatically convinced that what you're doing is right that you won't even hear reason. One of the biggest problems that we have as a collective is that we don't have a center that entertains critical thought. We move on our emotions, how we feel, and whoever is the best at tantalating our emotions and manipulating our emotions get the vast majority of our attention and our support, regardless of whether they're bringing anything to the table that's actually beneficial. All it has to do is sound good because the emotion is already charged to resist. And so I want to talk about a few things. First and foremost, there's this big push, there's this idea that our ancestors died for the right to vote. And that in and of itself is reason for every person to get out and vote. Now, what that falls in line with is this idea, first and foremost, that the two-party system is all we have and we must pick our poison. And what do I mean by that? When you have two sides that have historically never really did anything for you, one glosses you over, the other just straight up tells you they don't care. You don't exist with them, basically. And the other one sees that you exist, but they take you for advantage and they gloss you over. And at the end of the day, they never produce anything. And we can know this not about how they make us feel with the faces they put in specific places, not about how they make us feel with the rhetoric that they use to soothe our ills and our pains, but by the fact that in 153 years since we were quasi-freed, we have made no progress. As a matter of fact, the wealth gap is widening. So why is that? And there's no collective gain. Yes, you can find some Blacks doing some exceptional and extraordinary things, but you could find the same thing before the Emancipation Proclamation. There were Blacks doing exceptional and extraordinary things. Nothing has changed. So how are we experiencing this quote unquote freedom? You have to ask yourself that. You can't go off on emotion. You can't let somebody get you wired up and charged. And that whole thing, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is BS. My friend is the one that has my interest at heart. My friend is the one that will stand alongside me and ensure that I have what I need to be the best I can possibly be. My friend is the one that will listen to my complaints and offer real true reason as to how to deal with them, to overcome the adversity that I'm dealing with. Not somebody that will gloss me over and make me feel good, leaving me out there. My friend will hold me accountable to a certain level of behavior, not sitting up letting me be in a position that they know is not conducive for my empowerment. That's what a friend does. So when we talk about this idea that because the ancestors fought and died, and first of all, let's get this real. The ancestors fought and died for a lot more than for the right to vote. Now, the right to vote and the demand to vote every time is two different things. The right is to be able to choose what I believe is best for me and the advancement of my people. When I see that there's no choice, the way that I use my vote matters. See, the thing is it's not about the use of the vote, it's about the management of the vote. How do you handle your vote? Because you talk about the vote is powerful, the vote is valuable. Well, how you use your vote determines the value it has. If you continuously give it away for free, meaning that when you give it to someone, you have absolutely nothing coming back to you in exchange as a promise of an agenda, a promise of a particular voting pattern, a promise of anything significant coming back to you for your vote. You gave your vote up for free and you're getting nothing in return of it. Nobody who understands the political process does that. My vote is valuable, and sometimes I have to prove my vote is valuable by keeping my vote in my pocket. I will never vote for the lesser of two evils, because my vote is not simply selecting someone, it's endorsing them. It's saying that I believe that they can do what I need them to do, not that they're not as bad as this person. And see, that's what the belief in a two-party system does. Everybody's talking about how we're in this place of free thinking now. We've entered into a realm where blacks are escaping the plantation because some are now leaving the Democratic Party after years of traditionally voting a straight Democratic ticket and not seeing any gains as a collective. And now we are saying we're migrating to the conservative side, and that means we're free thinking. No, free thinking would be getting outside of the box and saying that this two-party system is not working. Because see, anybody that's actually thinking free and critically understands how the system was designed and created from the beginning. It simply takes two philosophical political ideologies and puts them on the same bird. So you have a right wing and a left wing, but both wings make the bird fly. And the bird is not on our, the bird does not operate on our behalf. You got to understand, when the system was created, we were slaves. We were not even considered. How we move about isn't of any importance to them, because they dictate our environment, which dictates the way we move, and then they gloss us over. We have never won, no matter what side we voted. And most of us, while voting traditionally Democrat, can't even explain how we got there, because when blacks were free, we were predominantly Republican. Now, if you can't answer that question, then that's where you need to start. But let's go back to the idea of voting no matter what. See, what most of you don't understand is, in an environment like this where everything is really controlled by the wealthy elite. See, we talk a lot about racism, but what we don't understand is racism is simply the guard that stands at the gate of classism and elitism. It's about protecting power, protecting wealth, and everybody is a pawn. Even middle class and lower middle class whites are pawns in this game. And these ideas of who you are, where you belong, and where you don't belong is created to keep the distraction and the illusion of something that works on your behalf. The whole idea of patriotism that's driving everybody now is an illusion. You know, the whole idea that this company is built on this large, strong, and unshakable moral standard is an illusion. This country was built by people who came to a country and attacked and destroyed and covertly killed. I mean, who in the hell even thinks about putting smallpox in blankets? Who in the hell ever thinks about killing off almost the entire buffalo species because they knew it was a food supply to a group of indigenous people? These are the people we're talking about that created this thing we call a country now. So tell me where the morality started. These are the same people that brought in people and made them chattel and put them to work for free and built an entire global economy off of their backs. And then consistently tries to skirt the responsibility of doing so, have to this day paid reparations for the disruption of the lives of millions of Blacks, the disruption of family, culture, spiritual practices, history. All of that was stolen and taken away. All of our values, our interests, and our principles that we carried with us, that was dear, that gave us our identity, was stripped away. We've never been compensated for that. We were never treated for the massive level of complex trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder that we experienced as slaves, as newly freed slaves, when we were being tortured and terrorized by clandestine groups like the Ku Klux Klan. Like the 12 years of construction, you hear the Reconstruction era a lot, but that's the 12 years after the Civil War, in which the Ku Klux Klan and other clandestine groups in the South reclaimed and took the South, pushed the Union armies back, and ultimately, through a clandestine and guerrilla warfare effort, won the Civil War, because they took the South back. That's why we are still fighting over statues of Confederate heroes in the South. That's why we are still in 1963 fighting for a Voting Rights Act that was given to us constitutionally after we were freed. You got to understand the history of this thing and how it works before you start talking about what we should do. See, the reason we can't win in the political arena is because we have no political clout. The voting of itself is not clout. You cannot say you have political clout in a voting arena when you only make up 13% of the population as a whole, and everybody in that 13% is not of voting age and don't qualify to vote. So you got to take into consideration that it's got to be more than just a vote for it to count. How does it count? The thing is, when you look at the most mobile group right now, rapidly closing the wealth gap on whites, are Asians. And Asians of many origins, from Vietnam, Korea, Cambodia, Laos, China, Japan, and the likes. They're all operating, and they've got this idea, hey, we're going to use our money to exert ourselves in the political arena. We're going to invest in agendas that advance what we do. So it's not simply voting, it's understanding how you move in this political process. If you don't have political capital in the way of being able to either lobby politicians or support their careers by giving to their campaigns, you are not in a position to really wield power in the way the game is played. So then the other option, if you don't have the money, you're going to have to create it, and that's to move out and decide you're going to build your own economy. The problem is, when you look at the diaspora, Blacks outside of Africa, and even in Africa, if you look anywhere where Blacks are, you see the same thing: disenfranchised, mishandled, mistreated, no political influence on a collective level, and no economy. All of their money is going into other people supplying them with their needs. Nowhere can you go and the economy is dominated by Blacks, meaning Blacks supply their own food, Blacks supply their own clothing, Blacks supply all of their essential needs, from water to gas, electricity, all of those things. All of that stuff comes from external economies, which come into that Black community, rape them of the money they do have, and give them subpar services for the most part. And that's on every level you can think about. And that's a problem. You can sit up and talk about voting all day long, but the bottom line is, if you don't have an agenda, if you don't have an idea of what it is that you're working for, you're going for, and it's strategically laid out, not about emotion, not about how somebody made you feel, how somebody hurt your feelings, but about what are they doing that will advance you. And at the same time, training and learning on your own how you move within a system to get the most out of it. See, there are ways to move in a system and that is not designed for you, but learn how to work within the system to where you advance yourself, and then you go back and you teach it to others, and then at the same time you develop your own system that can compete with that system, that challenges that system. That's where you develop power. That's where you make your presence felt. That's when you let people know we're in the game now. See, we're not in the game. We talk about this. We have given our vote away so much for free that nobody even shoots for it anymore, because the Democrats feel they already have it, because 90%, historically 90% of our vote is gone to them regardless. So they don't even work for it. Republicans have sit up through this whole fiasco with Trump, and now they've sent a message out that they don't even need the black vote to win. So they're not even caping for the black vote now. They're not even trying to convince you they need you. They've stood up and showed the world, hey, we can get where we want without it. And that's the point I'm trying to make. When you only make up 13% of the population, you don't have a force big enough or strong enough to sit up and say, this vote is going to matter in and of itself. Now, if you want to be a part of the process, be a part of the process. But I can never sit up. I'm not, and I don't normally get into telling a person what to do with their vote. I am real big about educating yourself so that when you vote on the facts, the history, the statistics, where your best chance lies to get something for your vote. If you're not getting anything for your vote, you've lost. If you're voting to pick the lesser of two evils, you've lost. You have fallen victim to the illusion that the two-party system is the only route. My personal suggestion is look at history and see what caused the greatest source of discomfort for the other side. When did white people and high-level government officials become most uncomfortable with where blacks were and what they were doing? It was in the 60s, moving into the late 60s and the early 70s, and it was the rise of the Black Panther Party. You see, the Black Panther Party wasn't just about saying we don't like cops. The Black Panther Party wasn't just about the programs it had within the black community, which were awesome. What it was about was a new political ideology, an idea of what it was demanding of this government and how it was going to influence that demand. It also had the networking capacity and the influential capacity to sit up and convince black people to move and operate and vote and support it. So it had the ability to become extremely powerful. That's where COINTELPRO came in, and they had insurgents inside of it, and they broke it down from the inside and destroyed it. And we lost some of our great leaders like Fred Hampton. You know, we lost, you know, people who were willing to stand up and go the distance. Some of them still in prison right now today. And so what we have to understand is that's where we need to be. We need to be in a place where we're developing something that represents us. We don't have representation. We can say we do. We don't have representation in the House or the Senate. We don't have representation in any grand mark in any particular major city in the world. Even places where we have black faces in high places, we don't have true representation. We see it in the perpetuated poverty. Every morning I get up, I drop my son off, and I ride through the community that's on the other side of the city. We go from, I mean, literally 15 minutes or less from where I live is in the hood. And that hood has been that way, and it's gotten worse over the last 30, 35 years. And it's getting worse. The predicaments, the situation, the conditions. Where is this advancement that the black man should be expecting for all this voting and this votes that we're giving any particular party, any particular candidate? Where is the investment you're having in me by me investing in you? See, this vote is valuable. I keep saying it. I keep talking about how awesome and valuable this vote is. So if I'm giving it to you, show me where it's working for me. If I'm investing my vote in you, what are you investing in me? And see, nobody can answer that with any true certainty from the other side. This is what we're doing for you and your people. This is what we're doing in the black community. Now, with all that being said, I'm not big on investing my energy, my time in anybody else and asking them to do for me what I can do for myself. And I think that's where we get lost. We go all out doing these during the voter cycle, and then the midterms, and then we do it over again, and then the midterms, and we keep investing in other people, expecting them to represent us, expecting them to provide for us, expecting them to create solutions that we have the capacity to create for ourselves. That's the problem. The problem is we're sitting up and we are constantly voting for people and then saying, yeah, this guy's going to do it. This guy's going to do it. And I know this is going to tick some people off, but President Barack Obama had 8 years to do it. And we have not, as a collective, advanced through that 8 years. So it's not about Black people in high places. It's about the collective Black people coming together in the grassroots level and creating opportunities for ourselves. There's never been more of an opportunity for people, to create their own way. The opening of the internet, the opening of the web has created unlimited and infinite amount of opportunities for people to set themselves up and do their own thing, not having to ask for permission, not having to beg people for a job, all of these things. Now, finally, the last thing I'm going to touch on that is probably the thing that's got me the most tight right now. Hey, what's going on, Owan? Look, hey, Nikita, look, check this out. We've got to be smarter in this process and stop allowing rhetoric and propaganda in the media to play us. I've seen a portrait of a sign, a billboard sign, not sure where it's at, but it says Trayvon Martin would have been 24 today and he would have been able to vote. And the whole idea is to get Black people out to vote. Well, see, I can almost guarantee that that was someone who's behind the Democratic, thing. And they're using the death of our people. And I've seen Mike Brown's name used. I've seen a bunch of different names used in the idea of pushing Black people out to vote. And the thing is, if you go back and you look at Trayvon Martin, there were Democrats in position to do something when this happened. And it took everything to even get George Zimmerman arrested, and then they dropped the ball in prosecuting this dude that has done nothing but be a darn eyesore and an embarrassment for the human race since the trial. And he's still walking the earth, and so many more Black men have died. They use Trayvon Martin's name, but they've never brought him justice. They've never brought his family justice. They use Mike Brown's name, but they've never brought his mother justice or his father justice or him justice. And we can go on and talk about Eric Gardner. We can talk about John Crawford. We could talk about Tamir Rice. We could talk about all these names that keep popping up, trying to push Black people out, saying, hey, look, man, we've got to do something. And yeah, it's easy to look at the stupid rhetoric and a bunch of the things that come out of the mouths of Republicans, especially the president right now, and say, man, anything but that. But the problem is, I'm not willing to sit up and say, hey, you guys who have never did anything for us but talk good to us, come on over here. I'd rather have somebody, I know where you stand. I know you don't like me. I don't like you. Let's go for what we know. I'm going to find a way to play this game. There's this saying, they're playing chess while we're playing checkers. No, the truth is they're playing Go while we're playing checkers. See, Go is a more intricate and highly strategic game than chess. Very few people in the West know about it, but it's a game. When you learn how to play and strategize on that level, you apply the ability to think critically that you use in that game to get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps ahead. You use that to apply that to anything in life. It's about who's out front, who is out thinking, who has the mobility and the innovation of thought to create solutions that go beyond the current situation. We are always in a place of reaction. We are reacting to everything because we're so far behind. By the time we get to this thing where we're dealing with this, they've already created 15 more pitfalls so that when we climb out of this, we fall right into the next one. We've got to learn how to strategize. We've got to learn how to think. We've got to learn how to have order. We've got to have goals, codes of conduct, protocols that dictate specifically how we respond to every possible scenario. We need to have all of that in place. We need to stop reacting and know when something happens, we won't even when we have a strategy, when we have protocols, when we have an agenda, when everybody is trained to know how we respond to things. When something happens, we won't become frenetic and unglued. We won't lose our mind. We won't start emoting and becoming violent. We will sit back and say, okay, this is our next move. We already know because we've been trained. This is what we do. And so when you do that, Now it's not about getting lost in your emotions and being reactive. It's about being responsive in a way that produces a desired result. This is how you start winning. This is how you make your presence felt. It's not in being manipulated. Right now today, everything that I see that's energized behind the vote is being manipulated by people who will benefit from your vote but would not benefit you at all. Everything. They just plan it. They got the rhetoric down pat. They know what to say to us to make us act and do what they want us to do. And they know what to put in front of us, and we take it. I mean, even right here in Houston, this whole Proposition A, Proposition B thing. I mean, all of this stuff is being played out, and you look and say, okay, what's going on with it? And you can ask 90% of the people, and they can't give you an educated conversation on it because they don't know. They're letting people play with their so precious vote without really knowing what's going on. If you can't sit down and hold an educated discussion for more than a minute about the things you're voting for, you really don't need to be voting because your vote is precious. And if you think that spending your vote every time that the vote pops up is how you get power, you got to rethink your thing. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with your vote is pocket it. Everything doesn't require you to spend on it. If it doesn't benefit you, why spend on it? Everything that pops up in front of you that you can buy with the money you have, do you buy it? If you can't see no benefit for it, do you buy it? Well, I've got this $5 and here's something here's something that costs $5. I've got to spend it. No, you don't. Matter of fact, the people who are always spending things that are valuable to them always end up impoverished. Sometimes the way you send the message is, none of you suckers deserve my vote, so you don't get it. Yes, somebody's going to get in office, but no matter who gets in office, none of them are going to benefit you. Take your vote, sit it in your pocket, come up with a strategy and an understanding. And see, the first thing you got to do is determine what you need. What do you want from a politician? What are they going to have to give you in exchange for your vote? You need to know this, because when you sit down with politicians, when you sit up and say, hey, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and you need to vote, you try to determine how you're going to vote, they need to tell you what they're going to bring to you. And there needs to be a way to hold them accountable. See, all right, I'm going to trust you. And if you don't handle your business, trust me, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure this is your only term. And then everything I can, if I find you're not holding me down in your term, I'm going to disrupt everything in your term. I'm going to invest in you either doing what you're supposed to do by me or disrupting everything you do. I'm here to fight. Now, if you can't represent me, don't ask me for my vote. It's that simple. And we have to learn how to maneuver. Everything that sits in front of us doesn't require our attention. Sometimes you got to let them destroy their own stuff. We keep talking about we want a revolution, but we don't understand what that means. You can't have a revolution and everything remains status quo. We are about to lose our mind because things don't look the way they used to look. The guy in the Oval Office doesn't look presidential, doesn't talk presidential. The way that the conservatives are behaving doesn't look like the Republican Party of 20 years ago. The Democrats are pretty much banking on people voting on them just because they don't like him. And I mean, nobody, you saw what happened in the presidential election a couple of years ago. You saw what happened. You would think that the Democrats would say, okay, we got to have a better plan. Just saying he's stupid and I'm not is not going to win, because obviously that he's got something going for him. He's got enough people believing that he can bring things to where they feel comfortable. You got to understand who they are. See, everybody is a pawn. If you're not wealthy and elite, you are a pawn. Racism is simply the guard at the gate that protects the wealthy and the elite. It's just a mechanism like everything else. Everybody thinks racism is the end game, that it's the end all. No, it's not. It's the protective mechanism at the gate that sits up and says that the wealthy elite can't be touched. And poor whites, while they still have certain privileges, are being manipulated. Middle class whites are being manipulated. They are the ones being played the most right now. And that's where he won at. And what you don't understand is, if you can't understand how things operate, for instance, we have this big feminist movement right now, the big Me Too movement and all this stuff. And who, with any kind of moral turpitude, would be against women being protected in our environment, given equal opportunity in our environment, not being treated like property and objectified. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't? So that Me Too movement is so powerful, and everybody gets by, and we get to thinking that, okay, this transcends racism, it transcends elitism, it transcends politics, right? But it doesn't, because we saw this when they elected Donald Trump. We saw this when they backed Brett Kavanaugh. White women who are conservative feminists will tell you, while I'm a feminist, I'm a conservative first. And they're going to vote with what they believe protects their interests, not against who they dislike. Because if you ask them on a one-on-one scale, do you like the dude? No, not really. But do you really think what Brett Kavanaugh did was right? No, but we only one playing by the he got to be perfect rule, and we better start looking at what serves us and understand that the rules they gave us to play by, they are not playing by. That's a fix. No matter how you look at it, that is a fix. When you sit up and you look at it and you say, okay, they set the rules, but then they don't play by them. And I mean consistently don't play by them. It's not like a couple of people that done went renegade. They don't play by the rules, but they got you playing by the rules. They the first one to demand that you forgive somebody when a loved one is wrongfully killed. Nobody's asked the Jewish people's family who died in that synagogue shooting, will you forgive the shooter? They don't even ask it, much less demand it. The pressure is on out the gate. Do you think you can forgive them? And because that's what we've been taught and trained to do, even if we don't feel it, I find it in my, no, hell I don't. Shoot, every time I hear, y'all gotta forgive me, but every time I hear a black person who's asked, will they forgive the killer of their unarmed son? And before they can answer the question, all I can think of is Samuel L. Jackson in A Time to Kill. And I'm thinking about, hell yeah, I hope they die and I hope they burn in hell. I ain't trying to, y'all do that forgiving thing. My thing is this: if you come against my family, expect to feel me. I don't want to talk about no forgiveness. I don't want to talk about none of that, because see, every time I see my people forgive, I see more of my people die. Why? Because there are no consequences to negative actions. Everybody thinks this country is built on moral turpitude, but it's the most immoral country on the planet. And the reason people don't do things that hurt other people is because they fear consequences. The reason there's a more chaos is because nobody wants to go to prison. And if you want people to stop killing you, start defending yourself. Start standing up and say, no, I don't think I want to forgive. I think I want an eye for an eye. Because see, they taught you a different thing. They told you to turn the other cheek, but nobody else is turning the other cheek. Even the people who taught you that that's what you're supposed to do, they're not turning the other cheek. And I guarantee you the families of those 11 people that died in that synagogue will not be turning the other cheek. They're going to use their clout, their money, their political influence, and they are going to make sure that the shooter pays. Look, I could sit here and talk all day about this. We need to do more reading. We need to do more research. We need to do more in understanding. We need to get together and work to develop a clear agenda of what we're doing and where we're going, and a strategic plan that will get us there. And the quick fixes aren't going to work. The putting the band-aids on it will not work. So we could talk about all this day long. You've been playing the voting game since you could vote. And tell me how that's worked out for you. And just so you know, the powers that be use these votes as a litmus test to determine whether people still believe in the system. See, when people stop believing in the system, revolution is around the corner. When people start saying this bull crap doesn't work, they're about to disrupt it. But as long as they can keep convincing you that the system works and you just got to try a little harder, you got to vote a little more, and you got to do that, and you keep coming out and doing it, they say, well, we got a large turnout. They were really upset back a few years back when voter turnout was at its lowest, and they were like, wait a minute, what's going on? And so they create things to get you back engaged, to get you back emotionally charged and ready to run to the polls and vote, because that's how they know they still believe the system works. No revolution around the corner because they still believe the system works. Understand how this works. I'm not telling anybody not to vote. I'm saying be extremely educated about what you're doing with something that you say is so precious. If so many people died for you to have it, I'm kind of thinking that they would want you to use it the right way, the best way, not just go spend it on what's not the worst. Okay, that person is really, really bad. This person is sort of bad. I got to vote on the no. If you can't show me what you're giving me for what I'm giving you, you don't get it. It's called fair exchange. That's basic human economics in any way you deal with it. Everything in life has some kind of economic balance to it. If I'm your friend, I'm exchanging being a confidant with you, being a confidant for me, sharing with you, you sharing with me, pouring into you, you pouring into me. Nobody has a relationship in anything where it's all give, and never get. That's toxic, that's destructive, and it will destroy you. But yet we doing it in this particular process. With that being said, I'm gonna jump off of here. I got a lot to get done, but I just had to address that. My thing is, I'm not gonna tell you what to do or how to do it, but I'm gonna ask that you be more educated. Again, if my ancestors, and they did, fought for so much and died and was lynched and was beaten brutally, had dogs sick on, for all different kinds of things. It was for way more than just the vote. But that was a part of it. I would think they would want me to use that vote, since it's so valuable, it's so much blood on it, judiciously. I mean, and to me, anything that somebody can get from me every time they ask for it, it's not valuable. It's not valuable to them, and it can't be valuable to me because I'm throwing it out there too easy. Sometimes you prove the value of something by keeping it and making a person understand you just don't get it automatically because you're a Democrat or you're a Republican or you're black. You're going to have to show me what you're going to give me in return. That's what everybody else is doing. But, you know, so that's my thing. Do your thing. And I'm going to back you one way or another. But I'm just saying, be educated about it. Be aware of what's going on. Be aware of how they're playing you. This all actually started because of that darn Trayvon Martin billboard. You know, they're going to use that to get you emotionally charged and get you out there, but they haven't done nothing about that. That boy still doesn't have justice. But they're going to use his death. But that's it. I'm going to get off of here. You guys have an unbelievable day. Do something great today. I don't care what it is. Just pick one thing that you're going to do and say, I'm going all out and I'm going to get it done. I dare you to do that every day and watch what happens in your life. Live your life on full so that you down here. With that being said, I'm out of here. Peace.
Here I come, ready or not. Frank Ocean made this record hot.
From a conceptual
sounded better than Jay.
perspective, people talk
Real
about
talk,
it as
I ain't throwing shots. Careful who you